counselors told me recently was that I identify as the problem because if I'm the problem, I can fix it. So I have let everybody else identify me as the problem because it's easier for me to fix me than it is to fix anybody else. Okay, so we've got dueling lives going on here. I have been able to set it up to where it is both the laptop and the cell phone. We've got TikTok and YouTube. Let's see if we can start doing it like that. I think that that would absolutely work. And that would probably get us, yay, it did. Ha! I've got somebody over there already. Sylvia, are you in both spaces? Too curious for this shit. Okay, so, okay, we'll do that. And then next time what I'll do is I've also got another phone, the phone that I used. Hey, guys. Okay, see you later, Sylvia. So I'll go ahead and set it up to where we can actually do it on both and all three. And I'll get the other phone out. Maybe we'll test it this evening. Oh, Savvy, I have that problem too. That was actually my main problem. Love bombing is such a narcissistic trait. And I find that because I am so sure that nobody will ever love me because I'm the problem. Saying it out loud can be hard for me, like, because you can hear it when you say shit out loud. That's why I say you should always say it out loud, right? Because you can hear it. You can hear that. That's awesome. I'm so glad it's notifying too. So because I constantly feel like nobody could possibly love me because I'm the problem and I'm the monster. When somebody comes in and they're like all the love, I'm like, oh, yay, finally somebody sees me and loves me. And it doesn't work really well. So love bombing is the person before. So you know those people that you meet that, oh my God, you're just the best thing in the whole wide world. I've never loved anybody like I love you. My last person in my life was just such an idiot, and you're just amazing, and you get me like no one's ever got me before, and you're just so perfect, and you're so wonderful. And you probably are all those things, right? But I don't know that 2 weeks in. Right? Like, I don't know you 2 weeks in. I know, like, that you have green eyes and brown hair 2 weeks in. I don't know your childhood trauma 2 weeks in. I don't know, so it's this, it's loving you before not loving you because you can love somebody before you understand who they are, but it's this combination of not truly seeing you, but putting you up on a pedestal, and also turning that into this overwhelming bombardment of how amazing you are. So you get to the point that you crave and need that attention because you have so much of it. Often it's because you haven't had it a lot. And then when they get to the point that they start devaluing you, you are convinced that it really is you the problem and not them because they were telling you how great you were 10 minutes ago, right? And that's what it is. It's showering of love. Awesome. Correct me, Shanithia. If that is incorrect, please tell me. It's very important for me to pronounce names correctly. So for me, it's very important. With love bombing, what it is that overwhelming sense that you're perfect. This overwhelming, like, just bombardment of you are the perfect being, without ever really seeing you, right? And it is used for manipulative purposes. It is that it's called the honeymoon phase. It's kind of creating this idea within you that everything they say is right because they see how beautiful you are, right? So when they start telling you how wrong you are, it's okay to be negative, right? They obviously mean positive things, right? Yeah, when things go sour, I'm not the issue. Or can't you take a joke? Or you're too sensitive. My sister actually told my partner that my son is too sensitive, and that's why he has problems with my mother, and that I encourage his sensitivity, and that's why he has problems with my mother. It's not that my mother screams obscenities, like that it's too sensitive. You're too sensitive. You can't take a joke, or I just want what's best for you, so I'm just correcting it, right? So that's what love bombing is that precursor to that. It is that point where nothing you could do is ever wrong. You are the perfect person. You've always been the perfect person. They've been searching for you forever. I'm so glad I finally found you. You're exactly what I need. Nobody else was as good as you. Nobody else was loved like I love you. Nobody else can love you like I love you. And then that manipulation of it. Yeah, it's so easy. It's so easy, especially when you grow up in a space where you are traumatized, right? Especially if you grew up in a space where you weren't given the love that you should have been given, or you were devalued a lot. It's also something that people who are very naive or rose-colored glasses or are very so if you look at the world kindly, you're more susceptible to love bombing. If you aren't constantly looking for the negativity in the world, you're more susceptible to love bombing too, right? And you're more susceptible to the narcissism, right? Or if you're neurodivergent, right? Or again, if you've grown up in a traumatized home where you haven't gotten a lot of love, right? And so you totally see well, and that's the other thing when, I mean, I love my children deeply and I still love my children deeply, but there are a lot of things I failed in, right? Like a lot of things that like my intellectual maturity and my emotional maturity was not great at the time, especially my understanding of tools that were appropriate. And also, the thought or the fact that I was in the middle of a great deal of depression when my children were young because I was dealing with shit, right? And so all of those things, even if you're a really good parent, even if you're a loving parent, you can still create this need for love within a child, within an individual that you are going to see that child fall for that love bombing thought process, right? You know, um, sometimes I wonder if the fact that I'm extremely effusive, like I'm a very loving individual. Like I'm that person that like, I call everybody sweet nicknames and I want to spend time cuddled up most of the time. And, like I am extremely, and to me, healing and loving was the purpose, like was my purpose. Like that's what I've always thought was, I was taught was my purpose. Right. So, um, but sometimes I feel like being so effusive actually was not a positive thing for my kids, right? Because giving a huge amount of love to a child and then being deployed, I think that that probably was pretty impactful, right? Like she had this huge amount of intensive love and then it disappeared. And that's not easy for any child to deal with, let alone a 3-year-old, right? And then I also feel like, when your parents who are very loving are very effusive about your love, then you come to expect that effusivity and see it as a loving behavior, which it was a loving behavior when it was given to you. But because your parents don't have maybe don't have a nefariousness behind it. Thank you. Don't have maybe a nefariousness behind it. You're not seeing that nefariousness in somebody else who's using that technique, right? Whereas your parent is telling you how amazing and beautiful you are because your parent truly believes that you're amazing and beautiful and wants you to see the amazing and beautiful within you. The love bomber is going to use the same type of effusive love that I might be using, right? So for me, it's one of those things that sometimes I even worry that, I've been too loving in ways, right? Not that it's malicious, not that I feel that I'm manipulative. I don't believe that I'm manipulative. I don't usually do or say things to try and get you to follow my thought process or me, right? Like, or to control you. Typically, I mean, I think that you can probably attribute the fact that I'm passing on this message is trying to get you to change your thought process, right? But on a typical or a manipulative level, I don't believe that that's the way that I interact. But I can absolutely see that overly effusive love can be, even if it's not love bombing, thought of as love bombing. And if you're given it in a sweet sense and in a right sense, you're going to see other people doing it as doing it in the same way that your parents did it, right? So thank you, Roman. Yeah, same, Savvy. Well, and then for me, so that's one of the beautiful things about the current partner that I have is that I've never been in a relationship with somebody else who feels the same way. Right? I've never been in a relationship with somebody who puts as much effort into making somebody else know that they're loved that I did, right? And most of the time, I would tell you today, I mean, my partner probably goes out of their way more than I do. I have so many problems with kitchen and cooking and stuff. So, like, I don't cook my partner meals for work. They cook for me, right? And they work full time and they clean the kitchen, which that's fine because we've divided our chores, right? And that's their chore. But they are constantly buying gifts and bringing me home things. They have more money, it's more capable, right? But I sometimes feel like I don't give the level that they give. And I constantly have to check, like, you know, do you feel that you're loved? Like, am I lacking? Like, do you feel loved? Right? Like, because I feel like for the first time, really, I see somebody in my world that actually has that intent of giving, that I have. And because and I'm not saying, I mean, they have their own mental, states and everything else, but because of ability, has even an ability to give it a little bit more, I think, than I have sometimes. I do not know Pebble. Well, and so here's the thing. I think a great deal of us use narcissistic tools without being narcissistic. We use tools that have been and can be used as abusive tools without being abusive because these are the tools that we are taught. So, bombing somebody, without realizing that you're bombing somebody because you want them to see how worthy you are or to see that they're appreciated, right? That's totally understandable, right? It's not a negative until you're doing it and then you're using it later on to devalue them and to deconstruct them and to change them to meet your needs, right? Yes, yes, Pretty Pebble, I picked it. I've heard of that before, right? Yeah, yeah. Um, and that's totally like I'm a little bit less of a Pebble person, but my partner's a Pebble person, right? And so for me, I worry that, being a Pebble person, they need me to be a Pebble person, and I'm a little bit less of a Pebble person. So I still trying to make sure that they feel the love that I feel for them in a way that works for them to feel, right? Yeah. And that's the big thing, Nocturnal. I want you to understand that so many of us are using these techniques, and so many of us have these thought processes not because there's something wrong with us, not because we're narcissists, not because we're part of the dark triad, not because we don't have emotion, not because, we truly think we're supposed to be in control of ourselves all the time, not because of those things, but because somebody taught us them because they're the only tools that we have, right? And until somebody teaches us something different, we don't have new tools. And then you really got to really see that we're really entering into a time and a space where so many of things are finally being understood on a deeper level that were never understood before, right? So we didn't have this language. We were just talking about this a little bit ago. We didn't have these languages 30 years ago, 20 years ago. When I came out of the mountains, these were not languages that we had, right? When I was 20 and LGBTQ, these are not languages we had. It wasn't even LGBTQ, it was LGBT. And the bi wasn't even okay. Like, what, you're bi? That just means that you're not really gay, right? Like, so we didn't have and it's the verbiage. It's also that deeper understanding though. So it's not just the verbiage. The verbiage is so important, and I don't want to sound like I'm discrediting it, but not just the verbiage, but that deeper conceptual, not just being able to explain it, but being able to see that that's what it is, right? And we didn't have, well, shit, we were still dealing with Freud 20 years ago and Freud's thought processes, which have been disproven, right? Yeah. And thank you, Sleepy. I absolutely always appreciate the pebbles. That makes me feel better because I love the pebbles. Like it doesn't matter what it is. Like I'm like, oh, yay, yay, yay. You know, it always makes me feel love. But I also grew up in a space like, and I don't think gifts are my love language, but I also grew up in a space where I didn't receive a lot of gifts, and I didn't receive a lot of gifts in either of my marriages, right? I haven't had like birthday parties or birthday presents since a young age and just shit like that. Right. And so because of it, every pebble that they bring me, well, and I've always been a pebble person anyways, give me little treats and little trinkets. That's so much better to me. Right. So every pebble is amazing. I love that. So that makes me feel better. But yeah, we really live in this space that we're taught these tools. And as long as we're taught these tools and we're not given the understanding they're actually bad tools, if we can't understand them and see them as tools that are negative, then how are we able to change them? Again, we get back. If you innately think you're evil, how can you ever be anything else except for in the struggle and therefore always be failing, right? If this is the only tool you're taught, and you're taught that spanking your children means you love your children, then you spank your children because you love your children. Spank your children because you love your children, because you're taught that you're spanking your children because you love your children, and you love your children and you want them to be okay. And if this is what I have to do to make you okay, right? So. And that's so new though, Nocturnal, like, which I'm sure if you're older, you remember that, 20 years ago, it mattered. Like you had to be like, specific. You couldn't even be like, even today, like LGBTQ almost really includes any non-straight agenda, right? Non-cis het. So, but 20 years ago, it wasn't just non-cis het. It was queer was barely there, and queer was only attributed to certain groups. And you had to be defined within a certain group, right? Yeah. So you remember then, right? You remember like in the early 90s and the late 80s where, it was, you had to be gay or lesbian or trans or a crossdresser, or like you had to have one of these specific things to be considered. And even if you had some of the things that are considered now, it wasn't considered good enough, like bi, right? Like it wasn't good enough. And so, but having not only the words, right, the verbiage like agender, but the concept that you can be without gender is just eye-opening for so many of us. Like, what? Wait a minute. You mean not only do I not have to conform to the one that I was told I was supposed to conform to, but I don't have to conform to the other one either. I can conform to neither of them. What? Oh. Well, that's new. Like, it really comes down to that. Yeah, maladaptive coping, how to use these tactics to survive. Well, not only that, but like we were just talking earlier, like if one of your parents treats the other parent in a specific way, you learn that treatment is acceptable, right? So say you have one parent who's really abusive to the other parent and the other parent doesn't get out. And so typically either you really heal yourself, right? Like either you are really conscious and aware and you can heal yourself, or you become the abused or you become the abuser, right? And it really doesn't matter which gender a parent was abusing, right? You can have the father abusing the mother and the daughters become abusive to their husbands and the sons become abuse victims, right? It doesn't really matter which gender is abusing as to which gender of child goes which way in that scale. But you will see that you're either healing or you're going abusive or you're going victim, right? And really what it is that if I think that you trying to if I think that a man's supposed to be in control of a woman's behavior, right? And that a man's supposed to be jealous, if I think that a man's supposed to be jealous or we're supposed to be jealous, then when somebody acts with a jealous behavior that's abusive, I just see it as what they're supposed to be, anyways, right? And so, since I see that as a tool that's supposed to be used because that's what we're supposed to feel, then I don't identify it as something that's problematic. So, I can't change it. Not only do I not identify it as problematic, so I can't change it, but I seek it out because that's what I need, right? Like, because if I equate jealousy with desire, right? If I equate jealousy with love, then I'm going to seek out somebody who acts in jealous behaviors because it's proof to me that they love me, right? He hit that guy at the bar because he loves me and that guy was hitting on him. Instead of he hit that guy at the bar because he's possessive and he thinks I'm his property and nobody can look at me, right? Because we've equated it with loving behavior. Yeah, I like polygender. I think that's a really good one. And I mean, myself, I identify as two spirit, but two spirit typically is a closed identification, right? Because it goes deeper. But I think that if I were not to identify as two spirit with the deeper implications of two spirit, that for me, I would probably be either identifying as dual gender or polygender, right? Just because for me, I feel like I embody a few different concepts, right? But I also have this problem with this identity of gender itself, right? Like, so it's not that I don't believe that gender exists because I believe that gender exists, right? Because I can innately feel within myself either the masculine gender when I feel masculine or the feminine gender when I feel feminine. So I absolutely believe that gender exists, but I fully believe that our idea of gender, of what gender is false. Like, so, looking at the fact that so many things that we view as feminine today started as masculine, right? Just those kind of things. Yeah. Appalachia is really cool. Actually, I love Appalachian culture. There's a lot of beauty within it. It's very much still, I mean, there is a lot of indigeneity within it. There's a lot of indigenous people within Appalachian culture, and it kind of mixes that within, even though there's also a lot of people who are in a diaspora in Appalachian culture. At least I have, so my second husband's grandfather was Appalachian, but I don't have a whole lot of Appalachian connection actually outside of that. Though my favorite band is Appalachian. So gender is kind of the consequence of society expectations, and it's really a societal construct, right? Gender really is only defined by individuals within a society, and it needs a society itself to define the idea of gender roles, right? Because there has to be an outside thought process to define a gender role within a society, right? So it absolutely is a societal construct, right? And I would definitely say that, we've talked a few times about some constructs are societal and some constructs are colonial and some constructs are cultural, right? And I would absolutely think that toxic gender roles are absolutely a colonial construct because you definitely get them from that colonizing thought process. Well, and so it's not that gender doesn't exist. And I do want to double down on that. Like, I absolutely believe that gender exists because, as I said, so for me, particularly, I view myself as about 60% female and about 40% male. At the times when I feel masculine, not only do I feel almost this phantom sense of my body, a sense of body dysmorphia that very much feels like my body is masculine, even though I know my body is feminine, right? And by that, I mean like I can even have like phantom limb feelings of genitalia. I've even had almost like phantom orgasmic situations where I have felt so. Most of the time, you can define male versus female orgasms in the way that they interact, right? And so there is a sense of there's a sense of explosion in both, but there's a sense of outward force with a masculine orgasm as opposed to kind of contracting force with a feminine orgasm, right? And so I can even orgasm with that feeling of this expansion and this outward force, right? And so when I think of myself as masculine, when my mind and my body identifies as masculine, I absolutely feel masculine as a body feel, right? And I absolutely my personality becomes, I guess, more what we would identify as masculine. Though again, I'm not sure if I really think on a high level that it is a masculine. Like I become a little bit more confident, I think. And a lot of times you can even really see it in my stride when I become more of a warrior as opposed to a nurturer, right? Though again, I think both are nurturing, right? And I think both genders can be warriors, but it is this there's a lot of sense to it, right? There's a lot of different things that totally, you know, gathered in together, right? And so I totally think the gender exists. I don't want to on any level state that gender doesn't exist. I just want it to be understood that our idea of what gender is a construct, i.e., the idea that lace is feminine, the idea that high heels are feminine, the idea that a sword and shield is for a man, the idea that, men don't wear dresses, right? All of these things, these constructs, I think are false. But the feeling of being either masculine or feminine or neither or both, I think is absolutely, absolutely factual and absolutely has not only so much weight, but also has so much importance. Like, because I think that that self identity helps form that idea of what we contribute, what we wish to contribute, right? So if you identify yourself as a mother figure and a nurturing figure because you believe that women are nurturing and mothers, and that's, something, then the ways that you might contribute are taking care of children, being a teacher, right? And so using that doesn't mean that you can't be a teacher as a male, but or take care of children as a male, but if you equate that as a maternal thing and then you find that that's something that you enjoy, then you're finding the form that you fit in. You're finding the part that you are here for, the niche that is you, the contribution that only you can contribute, right? Or at least only you can contribute on the level and the ways that you can contribute and with the understanding you contribute. So if you can take it in this broader space, we really see that our identity of what our gender is can absolutely help construct our identity and our space within a society, and that's a very important part of that construction, right? Well, that's the other thing. I also have the benefit of tomboy being more acceptable than feminine male, right? And we absolutely have that. Again, that gets back to that toxic masculinity idea, right? Um, Oh, that's so sweet. My brother is pure het but considers himself a mother. I like that. Yeah. Well, I was 44, 43 before I identified that I'm not bi. I'm actually straight. I'm just dual gendered. And I'm very cis het attracted. Like, I like warrior males and delicate, like fairy like females, right? And well, I like warrior men and delicate fairy women. And it's very cis het for me. Like, for me, I find it more sexually attractive as a female to have this very masculine male, very not toxic masculinity, but very warrior masculinity, which for me, I think is because that's who I am, right? And so for me to feel this sense of being able to find equality I need somebody who I know is strong enough that they're not going to seek out to dominate me, because you find that weak men, it is betas usually who, not that alpha and beta really exists, but we understand those terms. But it is men who are weaker who have a tendency to need to be dominant. And so I find that I really need strong men, strong masculine warrior type men, for me to not fear that they're going to harm me, right? And to be able to see the sacredness of it, right? Um, and for me, with women, I get very attracted to that very delicate sense of femininity. And I think that it's probably because both I have that delicate sense of femininity when I'm very feminine, but also because I find attraction in the ethereal and in that kind of fey substance, right? So for me, when I'm masculine, I'm very attracted to very cishet fey females, right? Um, Though I have to state that I'm never attracted to anybody, cishet or otherwise, who believes that everybody must conform. So if you're a very cishet female and you think that everybody's supposed to be cishet, all attraction goes out the window, right? But um, whereas 20 years ago, I identified myself as bi, now I understand that I'm not bi, I'm dual gendered, and that the two genders that I embody are both attracted to the opposite gender in very specific ways, right? Yeah, well, and that's a lot of it too. Like I have a lot of that internal or that internal balance by embodying two genders, but for me, when because I do feel that there is a sense of femininity and a sense of masculinity, and I feel that, well, it can differentiate for people, for me very specifically, that femininity to me is earth. I mean, if I just close my eyes and picture femininity, I picture nutmeg brown everything and raspberry lips and hands in the dirt and flowers in the hair and this, ultimate connection to the earth. And when I see masculinity and I close my eyes, what I see is really strength, but it is a different form of strength, right? I don't see it as the strength that I see from that connection to the earth, because I see that as strength as well, but I see it as a strength, as a defender strength, right? Which again doesn't mean that women can't embody that, because I totally see defender strength in the mama bear, right? But it is that warrior nature, that energy, that almost explosive energy, not explosive in a bad way, but like lightning or fire, right? Like that activity energy, right? That running through the forest, that swinging a sword, that kind of energy, right? Yeah, and that's the other thing, is that, like, I'm trying to define something that really shouldn't be defined, because it's such an individual definition, right? It's such an individual thing for everybody. So I can define specifically how I see it, or how I feel it, or how I experience it, but I really, really, really can't define it, right? And that's a good one. Fire is a very masculine element, and water is a very feminine element, right? You see where water can absolutely change nature, but it changes nature by slow erosion of path, right? Whereas fire changes nature in a bright, sudden flash, right? Um, which, if you look at the actual root of masculine and feminine as the creation of child, right, really is the same thing, right? A masculine energy creates in a second, right? Whereas feminine energy creates over a long period of time, right? Male's creation part of this is over in, however long. No, I'm not actually. I'm majorly water and majorly mutable and majorly feminine in my houses. Absolutely. Actually, I am Pisces with Capricorn moon and Scorpio rising. And then I have 3 or 4 houses in Pisces, including like my Venus and everything else. Thank you, Dave. But I absolutely can see that, fire, that spark, that quick through, and that is a very masculine thought process or a very masculine energy. I think that's really actually a great way to describe it that I don't think I've actually really looked at it before recently. Like I think I've thought of it before because, having done astrology and understanding that difference. But really when you look at creation, you see that too, right? Because a man's part of creation is this quick spark, right? Whereas a woman's part of creation is this slow forming, right? And that's what water does. It does that slow forming of different space. I have a son that's an Aries. My baby is an Aries. Both of my older children are earth signs. And actually, my oldest, my bonus daughter is an Aries, and my youngest, my son, are Aries. My bonus daughter is the 18th of April, and my son is the 27th of March. And so I have 2 Aries, and I love my Aries. Those are actually, that explains a lot. For me, Aries, that spark of constant passion for the world around you that you see within an Aries, right? I can only deal with women that are Scorpios. I can't deal with male Scorpios anymore. And I would have never thought you were a Scorpio, Sleepy. You don't really seem to embody that energy too much for me. April 10th's a good time. There's a couple apps that you can do them with, Sleepy, these days. You can even download free and you can input. And what you need to do is know where you were born and the time you were born. If you know where you were born and the time you were born, if you put those things into an app, it'll give you an entire house, and it will do. There's several that will do it for free. I'll do it occasionally just to look at my chart, because like I did my chart myself, like by hand, like 20 something years ago. I grew up really steeped in one of my first outside passions was astrology. And so I had a lot of books of astrology and a lot of understanding of astrology really young, and I lost a lot of it. But I did my first charts by hand. I did a chart for Cursed too. I had like this pink chart that has all of Cursed stuff on it in gold somewhere still. That I did as a painting, but I had to go and relook to see what my chart was because I couldn't remember if it was a Scorpio rising or a Scorpio moon. And so I went in and I just downloaded an app, and it'll give you your houses and everything else usually for free. Just look for just Google not Google Play Store. Do Google Play or Apple Play, whichever one you use, and do astrology chart. And find one that will, most of them will do your chart for free, and then it'll want to charge you for extras. So for me, Scorpios, and no hurt, hopefully, to nobody out there. So all signs really have like 3 different places that they fall. There's an early, a mid, and a late, right? And sometimes they'll be defined as different figures. Like, so for Scorpio specifically, you'll see the eagle, the scorpion, and the snake, I think it is. There's a third, and I don't remember what the third is, but depending on which part of Scorpio you're born in will depend on which one those is. And so if you're the scorpion of Scorpio, you can be extremely vengeful, right? If you're the eagle of Scorpio, you rise above, right? For me, unfortunately, so the boy's father is a Scorpio. My last ex is a Scorpio. And so for me, my Scorpio was a narcissist. And if you can imagine a Scorpio who in the idea of vengeance and feels that they are constantly harmed by, like, he really believes that all women are bad, like all women are whores and all women are evil, right? And so being married to somebody who believes that all women are evil and they owe him, who is a narcissist, who is also a Scorpio, really becomes that like I don't think I would ever date at least not another male Scorpio, right? I don't think I could ever date another male Scorpio. I'm actually really particular about the Scorpios that I have in my life. Like, uh, if I have to be really careful, especially in my personal, like right here life, like it has to be really careful for me because I'm terrified of the vengeance. Like I'm terrified of that long, slow vengeance that you can get with a Scorpio because my Scorpio was the type of Scorpio who didn't talk about it. He'd tell you months after the fact how fucked up you had been, and he'd been punishing you the whole time, right? That narcissistic that. But I've had lots of Scorpios before in my life that I loved. The first man that I consider my husband, though we weren't legally married, Sam, who was Swinomish in Upper Skagit, who I miscarried a child with, who has always been very impactful and important, and whose family is still very impactful and important in my life. It's actually Tawasi's cousin. Sam was a Scorpio. And that's why I loved Scorpios for the longest time. I just don't know if I could ever, I would definitely have to be really careful first and make sure I do every aspect and make sure they weren't narcissistic, right? But I've never, and that's why I'm like, I don't, I've never seen anything Scorpio like in you. Like, I would never have guessed. You are, it's the ND probably. You are very open and you're constantly like, one of the things that I really enjoy about the friendship that we've created is that I am constantly my own problem. Like I'm constantly my own worst enemy, and you will do shit like, that's what that says, don't worry about it. Or, like with the messages you sent, and you've heard me say things before. And so you're like, don't worry about it. This is what it says. When you can get to it, get to it. You're constantly aware, I feel, and you're constantly, I just don't, that positive side of Scorpio, right? That very intensely passionate, loving human being that Scorpio can be. I definitely see that in you. It's just not something I attribute usually to Scorpios anymore because of, but absolutely. Yeah. Well, and my oldest is a Virgo. So my bonus is is an Aries. And then I gave birth to a Virgo and gave birth to a Taurus and then gave birth to an Aries. And then my current partner has a triple Pisces. And let me tell you, they and I do not always, well, we're currently not getting along. I think we've only gotten along for maybe a month of the entire time I've been with my current partner. And then he has a Scorpio, November 7th or 2nd Scorpio, who is a really cool human being. We're very diametrically different though. They're very, and I support them fully because, so my current partner is a widower, and his wife passed a few years ago, and these are their children. And so his daughter follows the faith that his wife followed when she was passing. So she's very Christian. And she's very child orientated, which is really beautiful, but she does it really all through the church. And so she has issues with the fact that I'm very not Christian. I don't have issues with the fact that she's very Christian. But other than that, we really get along great. She's a really cool little Scorpio human being. But yeah, astrology. Well, and I think so again, I believe nature versus nurture too. So I believe both take effect, right? So I am a Pisces with a Scorpio moon and a Scorpio rising and a Capricorn moon. So I should be, because I'm a Pisces, I shouldn't care about money. In fact, one of the statements that they say about Pisces is we don't want to have money. We just want to spend like we have money, right? Which is absolutely true. I don't give a flying fuck about money, but I'd really like to be able to spend like I had it, right? Probably buy things for everybody else, but I'd still like to spend like I had it. Whereas Pisces really are anti-status. Capricorns can be very status orientated, right? They need the diametric, this is a relationship, this is a marriage, or the wife title or the widowed title, right? Capricorns will need a title, a status, whereas Pisces are like, don't fucking give a shit, right? And again, I've got that Scorpio part, so I can be intensely passionate, but at the same point, I have that Pisces part that is both intensely passionate, but also has this very cool wave of that intense passion, right? So it can be very, you know, opposed depending on how your chart plays out. And it also like, so Pisces really could care less about being on time, but I had an Aquarius and a Gemini parent, Aquarius parent and a Gemini parent, and neither of them were ever on time for anything in the entire fucking world. And so I would get physically ill if I wasn't on time. I'd throw up if I wasn't on time, which is that nurture, because Pisces could give a flying fuck less, but the nurture is like, oh my God, I'm going to be late. I'm going to be late, you know? So you can actually see that it goes both ways, right? 8th house, is that 8th house stellium or 8H stellium? I'm not sure what that one is, Phoebe. Are you saying like all of those are in Gemini for you? That's crazy. That's a hard one. That's a real hard one, because so much of Gemini, so much of Pisces is about pulling in two directions constantly, swimming upstream and swimming downstream. But so much of Gemini is about really embodying two personalities. My dad's a Gemini. I love Geminis, but so much is about that. Oh, okay. Your 8 houses in Capricorn. Yeah. Well, and I could pull it up and I'd have like, I know my Mercury is in Pisces, and I know my Venus is in Pisces and my Sun is in Pisces, but I don't remember what the rest of them are. I do remember that it's extremely water orientated and that it is extremely mutable. Like I only have like a couple of fixed signs in my houses, and I only have a couple of masculine signs in my houses, and I only have a couple of non-water signs in my houses. Yeah. Well, and so one thing about these apps a lot of times is that they'll give you the breakdown too. So you can get a little bit of understanding, you know, a little bit deeper. And one thing I like about these apps, as opposed to the way that we used to do it, where you have this book where, you know, like the 8th house means what, you know, is that they actually kind of give you a more detailed explanation of how it plays out with the rest of your houses too. Yeah. God, Mia, that's fun. How's that water working with them air, or that earth working with that air, Mia? Like, I mean, I can't imagine having that Gemini sun with that Scorpio rising. That would be, and then you toss in that Capricorn moon. That can be a lot, especially when you get, okay, so like Scorpio and okay, so like Pisces and Virgo are diametrically opposed for the 7-7 vibration, right? And Scorpio and Taurus, I think, or maybe it's not Scorpio and Taurus, maybe it's Scorpio and Cancer. It's Scorpio and Cancer, and then Capricorn and no, it's Virgo and Pisces, Scorpio and Cancer. No, not Cancer. That's why I'm putting it with another water sign. It's Cancer and Cancer and Taurus and Scorpio and Capricorn, right? And so these are, no, those are too close together. It's got to be the opposite. It's got to be Scorpio and Taurus and Cancer and Capricorn. But they're a 7-7 vibration is what they're called. They're the diametric opposed on the chart, right? On the housing charts. And so when you can have two of them in your sign, it can get this kind of push pull. And I imagine that having that diametric opposition within your house already, and then having like the Gemini that already has that kind of push pull is really getting, you know, well, you're very hot. You're a beautiful mess. But yeah. And it's fascinating. I haven't really dove deep into astrology for a long time, but astrology is very fascinating. I love astrology. And it really, I mean, you can get down and deep and see a lot of yourself, I think, within astrology. But I do believe that one should understand that it is nature versus nurture too. Like there is nurture that is involved in it. Hi, Tamara. Oh my gosh. But yeah, so that there is that nurture involved. I think I might get off and go do things. And then I think what I'm going to do is we're going to go live again tonight. But I think what we're going to do is try and do what we're doing right now, do a live through YouTube, see if I can do a live through the Patreon and a live through here using 3 different camera fields. And then I think what we'll do is we'll make it a open live, but we'll do subscriber comments only. And so it's not open for comments other than subscribers. 75 is a good year. I'm 78. And take it to, so we'll make it so subscriber only for comments, but open it up so that it's everywhere. Where, though, where you're born, I'm sure. That is all you need, though. If you take the date, so you want the birth date and the year, and then you want the time, and then you want the location. Because what it's going to look at is, so if it's 1:45 a.m. in California, then where Mercury is at that time might be 9 o'clock at that time. If Mercury is, say, in another part of the world with a different time zone, and I don't know enough about the time zones to say what's different, but so what it does is it takes that all together, and so you definitely want where too, but all of that will work. That's all you need. Is that and the where. And I'm pretty sure you probably know where. Most of us know, or at least have some idea where. And as long as it's within the relative space, like maybe I was born in Mount Vernon as opposed to Anacortes, still putting in Anacortes should work because it's all within that same time zone and, a few miles from each other. But yeah, most of the, and I don't know what the recent one that I found, because I have found one and downloaded it. And most of them you can find, though, you can download and play around, and they'll give you some information first, and then you can take it from there. And then some of them, it'll actually give you like an in-depth reading about what the entire chart means, and then it'll charge you for other extras. So you might actually get where you have that. You're welcome, Nocturnal. Absolutely. Well, and I try. It's just so hard sometimes on the other ones. We are going to be doing this across several platforms, though, too. So, like right now, I'm also over on the YouTube channel going live. So if you need to, like, say we're in an environment in a regular live and it's just becoming too nasty, and so I've turned off comments in the regular live, we'll have comments on over on the YouTube live, right? So that you can go over if you're, and you don't have to be like a subscriber like you're on here, but just actually like following my channel on YouTube. Oh, beautiful. That makes me feel so good. So you can go over to YouTube. Like if it's not having comments on in the main chat, though, as a subscriber, it should usually be on. If it's not having comments on over here, if you have the YouTube, you can switch over to there. And that should be the link tree of my bio. But I'm going to put it across all of them. Just so that, it has more, it should boost it, I think, a little bit more across. And just because we're crossing so many different platforms, I want to make sure that it is actually getting out on different platforms. But I'm going to go ahead and go. And then what I'll do is probably like 8 or 9 tonight, I'll go ahead and set up a live. We'll probably do it about 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So it's about 2 now. So in about 6.5 hours. Yes, I had a math. I'll probably want to take a nap. I'll probably go and curl up though. But I'll come back around 9 p.m. tonight. And I'll go ahead and put out that we're doing a live at 9 p.m. tonight so that it is seen. And I can only, again, do that if it's not a subscriber only live. It won't let me do a live announcement if it's not subscriber only. But I think, except for times like this, I think we'll probably start just doing subscriber comment only live. And so that way it is out there. I can put it out. I can announce it. It can get out to everybody, but it is still only subscribers that are commenting. And then again, in those lives, what we will have is, and nobody has taken it yet, but the opportunity to jump up and talk, to have a discussion forum instead of just a lecture forum, because currently this is very much a lecture forum, and I would like to have some discussion forum as well, right? Like I would like there to be the ability for there to be discussion forum. Yes, Sleepy, but I'll stay up. Like I'll stay up later. I did wake up at 7, so I'm not sure how late I'll stay up. I'll be real honest. And I'll definitely make sure that I have time in the morning too, so that we make sure that I want to make sure all the time zones have an opportunity, right? I don't want it to be something that nobody else has, right? Or that people can't get in. So, um, okay, so I'm going to do that next time. I'm going to invite you, and then we're going to talk about different ancient Celtic things and different movements. Ha 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 ha. But we'll have to do that. So I will be on again tonight. I'll go ahead and put out a thing that gives a time, and see you guys then. I'll go ahead and make sure it's on all the different platforms too. Love you guys. Thank you guys so much for your time and your energy and for so many beautiful words and so much beautiful input. I can't express really fully how much it means to me. Have a good one. Oh, you can't stay up all night, Phoebe. That's not okay. No, stop, Carrot. Carry on. Carry on. Carry on.